The last person I expected to see on my college campus was the boy who taught me how much a single year could hurt. My name is Adrian Walker, and if you had asked me 6 months ago whether I believed in second chances, I would have laughed and changed the subject. Not because I was bitter. At least, that was what I told people. The truth was simpler. Some memories don't stay in the past just because you leave town. They follow you. They sit beside you during lectures. They show up in the middle of the night when the dorm is quiet and your brain decides to replay every embarrassing moment you've spent years trying to forget. That's why college was supposed to be a fresh start. New campus, new people, new version of me. No more hallways filled with old rumors. No more whispers. No more reminders of who I used to be. By my sophomore year, things were finally normal. I had friends. I had a routine. I knew which coffee shop near campus served the best caramel latte and which professors actually answered emails before midnight. My life wasn't exciting, but it was peaceful, and honestly, peaceful felt like a luxury. Then everything changed on a rainy Thursday afternoon. I was leaving the student center with a backpack over one shoulder and a half-finished iced coffee in my hand when I heard someone say my name. Not Adrian. Not the way my friends said it. Full version. Careful. Hesitant, like the person wasn't sure they deserved my attention. I stopped walking. For a second, I considered ignoring it. College campuses are huge. Sometimes people know your name for reasons you don't understand. But something about that voice made my stomach tighten before I even turned around. And when I did, I forgot how to breathe. Finn Harper stood 10 feet away, holding an umbrella. The same Finn Harper I hadn't seen since graduation. The same Finn Harper I had promised myself I would never think about again. For a moment, neither of us moved. Rain tapped softly against the pavement around us. Students crossed between buildings. Somewhere nearby, a bus hissed to a stop. The entire world kept moving while my brain got stuck 3 years in the past. Finn looked different. Taller, maybe. Older. His dark hair was shorter than I remembered. His shoulders seemed broader. But his eyes were exactly the same. I hated that I noticed. I hated that I remembered. Every instinct told me to walk away. So naturally, I stood there like an idiot. Finn swallowed hard before speaking. Hey, Adrian. Just hearing my name in his voice felt wrong. Like finding an old scar you thought had disappeared. I tightened my grip on my coffee cup. Are you doing here? It wasn't the friendliest question. I didn't care. Finn glanced down for half a second before looking back at me. I transferred here this semester. Of course he did. Because apparently the universe had looked at my peaceful life and decided it needed more drama. I laughed once. Not because anything was funny. That's unfortunate. The words landed harder than I intended. Finn didn't argue. He didn't get defensive. He just nodded slowly, like he had expected worse. That should have satisfied me. It didn't. A strange silence settled between us. Finally, Finn took a careful step forward. I know you probably don't want to see me. Probably? I asked. That's optimistic. A tiny smile appeared on his face before disappearing again. Then something changed in his expression. Not confidence. Not pity. Something closer to regret. Real regret. The kind that looked heavy. Finn looked down at the wet pavement and quietly said, I owe you an apology, Adrian. My chest tightened immediately. No, absolutely not. Had spent years imagining what I would say if I ever saw him again. None of those imaginary conversations involved forgiveness. None of them involved apologies. I shook my head. Don't. Finn looked up. Please. I should have left. I should have walked away and gone back to my normal life. Instead, I stayed. Maybe because part of me wanted answers. Maybe because part of me wanted to see if guilt looked different after 3 years. Finn took a breath. I know I can't change what happened. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But if there's any chance... He stopped. For the first time since I'd known him, Finn looked nervous. Then he said the one thing I never expected to hear. Just give me one chance. And standing there in the rain, staring at the boy who had once been the worst part of my life, I realized something that scared me more than seeing him again. A small part of me wanted to know why. The strange thing about seeing Finn again was that I had spent years imagining it, and none of those versions felt anything like reality. In every imaginary scenario, I walked away first. I said something clever, something cold, something that proved I was completely over everything that happened in high school. Instead, I stood there in the rain staring at him while old memories pushed their way back into my head. Adrian? Finn said carefully. I blinked. What? You look like you were about to leave. Maybe I am. Finn nodded. That would be fair. There it was again. That calm acceptance. Somehow it annoyed me more than if he had argued. I folded my arms. What exactly do you want from me? Finn looked down for a second. A conversation. I laughed. 3 years later? I know. Do you? My voice came out sharper than I intended. Finn did not respond immediately. Students continued passing around us. Nobody noticed the awkward tension standing in the middle of the sidewalk. Nobody knew that one person in this conversation belonged to some of the worst memories of my teenage years. Finally, Finn exhaled slowly. I think about it all the time. I hated that answer because I did not believe him, because a part of me did. You should not, I said. It is over. Finn studied my face. Then why do you still look hurt? That question landed harder than it should have. I immediately looked away. The problem with old wounds was that they never stayed buried as well as you hoped. Back in high school, I used to think Finn was different. That was the embarrassing part. Before everything became complicated, we had actually been friends. Not best friends, not inseparable. Close enough that I knew his favorite energy drink and he knew I hated group presentations. We sat at the same lunch table. We joked during class. We shared answers before quizzes. Small things. Normal things. Then 1 year changed everything. Not because Finn started rumors. He did not. Not because he became cruel. He was not. The truth was somehow worse. When things got uncomfortable, Finn did nothing. And sometimes doing nothing hurts more than anything else. Adrian, I looked up. Finn was watching me carefully. I know I do not deserve forgiveness. Good. He nodded once. You are right. I stared at him. Why was he making this difficult? People were supposed to defend themselves. They were supposed to explain. They were supposed to tell you why things were not really their fault. Finn was not doing any of that. You know what bothers me? I asked. What? You keep acting like you understand. Finn swallowed. Maybe I understand more than you think. No. I shook my head immediately. You do not. For the first time, something painful flashed across his face. Gone almost instantly, but I saw it. Maybe not, he admitted quietly. A bus pulled up near the curb behind us. The doors opened with a hiss. A group of students climbed aboard. Neither of us moved. Finn looked exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. Like he had rehearsed this conversation 100 times, and none of it was going according to plan. I am sorry, Adrian. His voice was barely above the sound of the rain. I looked away again. Hearing those words should have felt satisfying. It did not. If anything, it made everything messier, because apologies could not change the past. They could not rewrite memories. They could not give someone back the version of themselves that existed before they got hurt. Sorry is easy, I said quietly. Finn nodded immediately. I know. Another silence settled between us. Then my phone buzzed. A text from my roommate asking where I was. I grabbed onto the interruption like a lifeline. I have to go. Finn looked disappointed, but not surprised. Okay. I took a step backward, then another. Finn stayed where he was. Rain continued falling around us. For a second, neither of us spoke. Finally, Finn lifted his eyes to mine. If you ever decide to give me 5 minutes, I will be here. I almost laughed. Almost. Instead, I turned around and started walking away. But halfway across the courtyard, I looked back. Finn was still standing there, still watching. And for the first time since seeing him again, a question slipped into my mind that I did not want to ask. What if he really had spent 3 years regretting it? 3 days passed before I saw Finn again, and unfortunately, the universe seemed determined to make that happen. I was carrying a stack of books across campus when I spotted him sitting alone outside the library. My first instinct was to turn around. My second instinct was exactly the same. Unfortunately, Finn looked up at the worst possible moment. Our eyes met. Great. Just great. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Finn stood. Adrian. I sighed loudly enough to qualify as a weather event. You know, most people take a hint after being ignored. I know. And yet here you are. To my annoyance, he smiled slightly. Not because he thought anything was funny. More like he was relieved I had not immediately walked away. Can I buy you a coffee? He asked. I stared at him. That is your plan? It was worth trying. No, it was not. Finn nodded. Fair. I should have left right then. Instead, I stayed standing there for reasons I did not fully understand. Maybe curiosity. Maybe stubbornness. Maybe I wanted to see how long he could keep doing this. Finn looked nervous again. That still felt strange. High school Finn had never looked nervous around anyone. What do you want me to say? I asked. The truth. The truth, he nodded. Tell me what you think of me. I laughed. You really want that conversation? Yes. I shifted the books in my arms. Fine. I think you are 3 years too late. The words landed exactly where I wanted them to. Finn looked down. You are right. I think apologies are easy. You are right about that too. And I think you show up now does not magically fix anything. I know, I frowned. Can you stop agreeing with me? That actually earned a small laugh from him. Sorry. Not say sorry. I am already tired of hearing it. His smile disappeared immediately. Guilt flashed across his face. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Students moved around us. A skateboard rolled across the walkway nearby. Somewhere across campus, music drifted from an open dorm window. Normal college life continued, while this awkward conversation refused to end. Finally, Finn spoke. What would make you believe me? I stared at him. Believe what? That I am not the same person anymore. There it was. The question he had probably wanted to ask from the beginning. I looked at him carefully. His expression was serious. Honest, maybe. The problem was that honesty was difficult to measure. Anybody could claim they had changed. Anybody could say the right words. Actions were harder. Much harder. Suddenly, an idea formed in my head. It was probably immature, definitely petty, and yet it felt right. You really want an answer? I asked. Finn nodded immediately. Yes. I took a slow breath, then stop apologizing. He blinked. What? You heard me. I shifted my backpack higher onto my shoulder. Words are cheap, Finn. His eyes stayed on mine. Then what do I do? For the first time since this whole mess started, I felt like I had control of the conversation. If you want me to believe you changed, then prove it. Finn went completely still. The campus noise seemed to fade for a second. Then he nodded once. Slow, serious, determined. Okay, I narrowed my eyes. That is it. That is it. You do not even know what that means. Finn's expression softened. Then I will figure it out. And somehow, standing there outside the library, I got the uncomfortable feeling that he actually meant it. The first thing I learned after that conversation was that Finn apparently took challenges very seriously. The second thing I learned was that he was annoyingly patient. A week passed without any dramatic speeches or emotional ambushes. Honestly, I started to think he had given up. Then Monday morning arrived. I walked into my statistics class carrying a coffee and exactly zero enthusiasm. College students should not be expected to understand numbers before 9 in the morning. That was a basic human rights issue. I dropped into my usual seat and opened my backpack. My notebook was missing. I froze. Then I checked again. Still missing. Great. Somewhere between my dorm and class, I had managed to lose the one notebook containing half a semester of notes. You look stressed, my friend Emma said from the seat beside me. I lost my notebook. The blue one? Yes, Emma winced. That is bad. Thank you for your support. I spent the entire lecture distracted. After class ended, I retraced my steps across campus. Student center, coffee shop, library, nothing. By lunchtime, I was ready to accept my academic funeral. Then I returned to my dorm building and found something waiting outside my door. My notebook. I stopped walking. For a second, I honestly thought I was hallucinating. The blue cover sat neatly against the wall. On top was a sticky note. Found this near the library. Thought you might need it. No signature. No dramatic message. No request for gratitude. Just one sentence. I stared at the handwriting. Unfortunately, I recognized it immediately. You have got to be kidding me, I muttered. Evening, I found Finn studying alone outside the student center. He looked up when I approached. You found it, he said. You left the note unsigned. I assumed you would figure it out. I folded my arms. You could have texted me. Finn shrugged. I do not have your number. That was technically true. How did you even know it was mine? I asked. Your name was inside. Fair enough. I hated reasonable answers. You could have kept walking. Finn looked genuinely confused. Why would I do that? For a moment, neither of us spoke. The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the campus lawn. Students crossed the quad carrying backpacks and takeout containers. Everything felt strangely normal. Too normal. Finally, I pointed at him. This does not count. Finn blinked. Finding a notebook. That is basic human decency. To my surprise, he smiled. Not a smug smile, not a victorious smile. A small one. Okay, I repeated. That is your response? He nodded. You are probably right. I narrowed my eyes. You know, you are making it very difficult to stay annoyed. The words slipped out before I could stop them. Finn looked startled, then amused. I will try harder next time. I rolled my eyes immediately. Do not get carried away. As I turned to leave, a voice called from behind me. Adrian? I glanced back. Finn hesitated. I was not helping because of the challenge. My stomach tightened unexpectedly. Then why? Finn held my gaze for a second. Because it mattered to you. For some reason, that answer followed me all the way back to my dorm. The problem with people changing was that once you noticed it, you started noticing other things too. That realization hit me on a Friday afternoon when I was sitting in the student center with Emma. We were working on a group project that neither of us wanted to be doing. You have read the same paragraph 4 times, Emma said. I looked up. What? Exactly. She pointed her pen at me. What is going on with you? Nothing. Emma immediately laughed. That was the least convincing answer I have heard all semester. I rolled my eyes and looked back at my laptop. Unfortunately, she knew me too well. This is about someone, she said. No, yes, no. Adrian, I sighed. You are exhausting. And yet you love me. Before I could answer, a familiar voice interrupted from behind us. Sorry to bother you. I froze. Emma's eyes widened instantly. Finn stood there, holding a folder. Great. Perfect. Exactly what I needed. More awkwardness. Finn looked at me first. I think this belongs to you. He handed me the folder. I blinked. It was mine. Again. How do you keep finding my stuff? I asked. You lose more things than you realize. Emma covered her mouth to hide a smile. Traitor. Thank you, I said reluctantly. Finn nodded. No problem. Then he started to leave. No lingering. No speech. No attempt to continue the conversation. Just a simple goodbye. Wait, Emma suddenly said. Both of us looked at her. She pointed at Finn. Do I know you? Finn hesitated. Probably not. Emma frowned. You transferred here recently, right? Yeah. Something about her expression changed. Hold on. She snapped her fingers. You are the guy who helped Professor Jenkins during the charity fundraiser last month. Finn looked surprised. How do you know that? My cousin volunteers there. Emma leaned forward. She said some student practically saved the whole event after 2 volunteers canceled. Finn immediately looked uncomfortable. It was not a big deal. According to her, it was. Finn shrugged. People needed help. Then he left before either of us could stop him. Emma watched him disappear through the doors. Then she slowly turned toward me. Interesting, I groaned. Do not start. Too late. She folded her arms. How do you know him? I hesitated. High school. Just high school. Emma, she narrowed her eyes. There is definitely a story here. I looked away. The worst part was that later that night, curiosity got the better of me. I sent a message to Emma's cousin. One message. One simple question. 20 minutes later, she replied with 3 paragraphs. Apparently, Finn had spent nearly 12 hours helping organize supplies, setting up tables, and staying long after everyone else left. Nobody asked him to. Nobody paid him. He just stayed. I sat on my bed staring at my phone. Something felt wrong. Not because I thought Emma's cousin was lying. Because every new thing I learned about Finn made the version of him in my memories harder to understand. Then another message arrived. This one from an unknown number. My stomach tightened immediately. I opened it. It was Finn. The message was short. I found something else that belongs to you. Call me when you have time. I stared at the screen. Then I read the message again. What exactly had Finn found this time? I stared at Finn's message for nearly 5 minutes before finally calling him. The phone rang once, twice. Then he answered. Hey! His voice sounded surprised. You actually called. Not get used to it, I said immediately. Finn laughed softly. Fair. I leaned back against my dorm room wall. What did you find? There was a brief pause. I think this is easier to show you. That sounds suspicious. It is not. That is exactly what suspicious people say. Another laugh. Somehow hearing it felt strange, familiar, dangerous. Can you meet me tomorrow? He asked. I should have said no. Instead, I found myself checking my schedule. 30 minutes, I said. That is all you get. 30 minutes is fine. The next afternoon, I found Finn waiting outside a small coffee shop near campus. He stood when he saw me approaching. You are early. Do not make this weird. Working on it. We sat at a table near the window. Finn placed an old folder on the table between us. My stomach tightened immediately. I recognized it before he even opened it. No way. Finn carefully slid the folder toward me. My name was written across the front in faded black marker. I stared at it. Where did you get this? My mom found it while cleaning out storage boxes. I slowly opened the folder. Inside were old papers from high school, essays, projects, club forms, things I had completely forgotten existed. Then I froze. Between 2 pages was a folded piece of paper. My handwriting. My chest tightened immediately. You kept this? Finn looked down. I never threw it away. I unfolded the paper carefully. It was a speech I had written during junior year for a student leadership program, a program I almost quit after everything became difficult. I remember this, I said quietly. Finn nodded. I know. I looked up. How? His expression changed, more serious now, because you were going to throw it away. The memory hit me unexpectedly. The hallway, the trash can, me standing there frustrated and embarrassed. I remembered it, barely. You took it. Finn nodded once. Why? For a second, he said nothing. Then he met my eyes. Because I thought you were talented. The answer caught me off guard. You had a strange way of showing that. Finn looked away immediately. The guilt returned. He rubbed a hand across the back of his neck. I know. Silence settled between us. Outside, students crossed the street carrying backpacks and coffee cups. Life continued around us. Inside, I stared at the folder. At pieces of a version of myself I thought everyone else had forgotten. There is something else, Finn said quietly. I looked up. His expression had become unusually tense. What? He hesitated. For the first time since seeing him again, he looked genuinely afraid. The reason I transferred here. My grip tightened on the folder. What about it? Finn swallowed hard. It was not an accident, Adrian. Suddenly, the coffee shop felt very small. I stared at Finn across the table. What do you mean it was not an accident? For a moment, he looked like he was reconsidering every decision that had brought him here. Then he took a slow breath. I knew you were here. The words landed somewhere between surprising and unsettling. You transferred because of me? Finn nodded once, partly. I leaned back in my chair. That is not a normal answer. I know. That is actually a little concerning. To my surprise, he laughed. Not because anything was funny, more because he knew I was right. You are not helping your case. I was not trying to. That answer stopped me. Most people spent conversations trying to look better. Finn kept doing the opposite. Then explain it. He looked down at the folder still sitting between us. After high school, I thought about reaching out 100 times. And you never did. No. His voice was quiet. Because every message sounded selfish. I frowned. What does that even mean? Finn met my eyes. It means I wanted forgiveness more than I deserved it. For a second, neither of us spoke. The noise of the coffee shop filled the silence. A blender started somewhere behind the counter. Someone laughed near the door. Normal sounds. Normal people. Meanwhile, my entire afternoon had somehow become a conversation I never expected to have. So you transferred here because you felt guilty? I asked. Finn immediately shook his head. No. Then why? His jaw tightened slightly. Because I wanted the chance to do something right for once. That answer hit harder than I wanted it to. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A message from Emma. Where are you? Group project emergency. I glanced at the screen and groaned. Finn smiled slightly. Bad news? Emma discovered a new deadline. That sounds dangerous. You have no idea. I stood up and grabbed the folder. I should go. Finn nodded. Disappointment flashed across his face for half a second before disappearing. Okay, I hesitated. Then something strange happened. You can walk with me if you want. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. Finn looked genuinely surprised. Really? Do not make it weird. Working on it. We left the coffee shop together. The late afternoon sun painted long shadows across campus. Students crossed the quad carrying backpacks, laptops, and cups of coffee that cost way too much money. For the first few minutes, neither of us said much. Oddly, the silence felt less uncomfortable than before. Then a voice called my name. Adrian! I turned around. One of my classmates jogged toward us. Professor Jenkins moved the presentation to Wednesday. Seriously? He nodded. Check your email. Thanks. The guy waved and continued down the sidewalk. As soon as he disappeared, Finn looked at me. Presentation? Group project. The one you have been complaining about for 2 weeks? I stopped walking. How do you know I have been complaining about it for 2 weeks? Finn immediately looked caught. I narrowed my eyes. Finn. He rubbed the back of his neck. Emma talks very loudly in the student center. I stared at him for 3 full seconds. Then I laughed, despite myself. A real laugh. The first one he had heard from me since arriving on campus. Finn froze, not moving, not speaking, just staring at me like he had discovered something impossible. And for the first time, I realized that making me smile seemed to matter to him a lot more than winning my forgiveness. The strange thing about trust was that it never arrived all at once. It showed up in small moments when you were not paying attention. A text asking if you made it back to your dorm after a late study session. A coffee waiting outside the library before an exam. Someone remembering details you forgot you mentioned. That was the problem. Somewhere along the way, Finn had stopped feeling like an interruption and started feeling like part of my routine, which was exactly why I knew I was in trouble. You are staring at your phone again, Emma said. I looked up from the student center table. I am not. Adrian. Okay, maybe a little. Emma grinned immediately. Is it him? I hated that she already knew who him was. You are impossible. That is not a no. I sighed and looked back at the message on my screen. Finn had sent a picture of a campus flyer. Apparently, the coffee shop near the library was giving away free cookies with every drink after 6 o'clock. The message underneath was simple. Thought this information would improve your day. To my annoyance, it actually had. "You are smiling," Emma said. I immediately stopped. I was not. You absolutely were. Before I could defend myself, another notification appeared. This time it was not a message. It was an email. My eyes narrowed as I opened it. Then my stomach dropped. "What happened?" Emma asked. I turned the screen toward her. The internship program I had applied for months ago had finally responded. Unfortunately, the response was not good. I had been placed on a wait list. Not accepted, not rejected. Stuck in the miserable middle. Emma winced. "That is rough." "Yeah." I leaned back in my chair. The disappointment hit harder than I expected. I had worked for that application. A lot. Apparently not enough. 20 minutes later, I found myself sitting outside on a bench near the quad, trying not to think about it. The evening air was cool. Students crossed the lawn carrying backpacks and takeout bags. Then a familiar voice spoke beside me. "Bad day?" I looked up. Finn, of course. Somehow he always appeared when my life decided to become complicated. "How did you know?" He sat down beside me, leaving enough space to feel respectful and somehow thoughtful at the same time. "Your message was shorter than usual." I stared at him. "That is how you knew?" He shrugged. "You usually use more words." For some reason, that made me laugh. Then I told him about the internship. Finn listened without interrupting. When I finished, he looked out across the lawn for a moment. "Can I tell you something?" "Depends." The year after high school, I applied for something I really wanted. I blinked. And I did not get it. "What happened?" Finn smiled slightly. "I applied again." "That is your inspirational speech?" "I am still working on my motivational speaker career." I laughed despite myself. Then the laughter faded. "You really think I should try again?" Finn looked directly at me. "I think one disappointment should not get to decide your future." The words settled somewhere deep inside me. Before I could respond, Finn stood up. "I should go." My chest tightened unexpectedly. "Already?" Finn seemed surprised by the question. So was I. Then he smiled. Small, genuine. "Yeah!" He shoved his hands into his pockets. "Take care of yourself, Adrian." I watched him walk away across the quad. And for the first time, the thought that scared me was not whether Finn had changed. It was the realization that I had started looking forward to seeing him every day. The next week felt different. Not because anything dramatic happened. Because everything felt strangely quiet. The messages stopped. The random coffee recommendations disappeared. The familiar sight of Finn sitting outside the library was suddenly gone. At first I told myself I did not care. Then 3 days passed. Then 4. By Friday afternoon, I was checking places where I knew he usually studied. That realization alone was embarrassing. "You are looking for him," Emma said. I nearly dropped my coffee. You appeared out of nowhere, avoiding the topic already. "Interesting," I groaned. "I am not looking for anyone." Emma pointed across the quad. "Then why have you stared at the student center entrance 6 times in 10 minutes? Unfortunately, she had a point. Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I opened the message. It was from one of the volunteers at the charity fundraiser. "Hey, do you know Finn? He asked me to give you this if I saw you." Attached was a photo of an envelope. My stomach tightened immediately. 20 minutes later, I was sitting alone on a bench holding the letter. Inside was a single page. "Adrian, I think I finally understand something. Proving I changed was never really about convincing you. It was about becoming someone I could respect too. You were right. Words are easy. Actions matter more. I do not know if I earned your trust, but meeting you again changed me more than you probably realize. I am leaving campus tomorrow. A family opportunity came up back home, and I accepted it. I wanted to tell you in person, but honestly, I was not sure you would want that conversation. Thank you for every minute you gave me." Finn. I read the letter twice, then a third time. Tomorrow. He was leaving tomorrow. Suddenly, the thought of never seeing him again felt wrong. Really wrong. Before I could talk myself out of it, I stood up and headed across campus. The train station was only a few miles away. When I arrived the next morning, the platform was crowded with travelers carrying suitcases and backpacks. For one terrible second, I thought I was too late. Then I spotted him. Finn stood near the end of the platform with a duffel bag over one shoulder. He looked up. His eyes widened immediately. Adrian? I stopped in front of him, slightly out of breath. You were really going to leave without saying goodbye? Finn looked surprised. I left a letter. That is not the same thing. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The train announcement echoed through the station. People began moving toward the boarding area. Finn looked at me carefully. Why are you here? The question was simple. The answer was not. I took a slow breath, because somewhere along the way, you stopped feeling like the worst part of my past. Finn did not move. Adrian. I shook my head. You wanted a chance, remember? His expression softened immediately. Yeah. For the first time in a long time, I smiled without forcing it. I think you proved your point. The relief on his face was impossible to miss. Not excitement, not victory. Relief, like he had been carrying something heavy for years and had finally set it down. Then he laughed softly. You have no idea what that means to me. I looked at him for a second before reaching out and grabbing his hand. Simple, natural, real. Finn looked down at our hands and then back at me. Neither of us let go. Around us, people continued boarding trains. Announcements continued playing overhead. The world kept moving. For the first time, neither of us seemed in a hurry. Because sometimes a second chance is not about changing the past. Sometimes it is about choosing what happens next. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and share it with friends who might enjoy it too. We would love to know where you are watching from. Tell us your city and country in the comments. More heartfelt and unforgettable LGBTQ stories are already waiting for you. See you in the next one.